But the number of chromosomes also has a factor involved in the complexity of the organism. Penicillin has 2 chromosomes. So when a penicillin divides or grows, it only has 2 chromosomes that have to unwind, split, copy themselves, and wind back together. Which, of course, requires a lot of energy for this to happen also. And that's another whole long system on how Michael Behe's book, Darwin's Black Box, explaining the complexity of the cell, is really amazing. Well worth reading. But fruit flies have 8 chromosomes. So I put these animals and plants and things in order as a spoof to make fun of the evolution theory, how that, the more complex you get, the more you evolve. And how penicillin evolved first and slowly turned into a fruit fly. And over millions of years, got some more chromosomes and became either a tomato or a housefly. They're twins, Nobody can tell the difference between a tomato and a housefly. They both have 12 chromosomes. This would be like the number of instruction manuals to build that organism. A tomato and a housefly, same number of chromosomes. Does that prove anything? Slowly it evolved into a pea, of course, with 14 chromosomes, and then I'd add the numbers up. These are the actual number of chromosomes found in these organisms. Now, possums, redwood trees, and kidney beans all have 22. Proving, of course, they're twins, identical triplets this time, closely related. Most people can't tell the difference between a possum, a redwood tree, and a kidney bean. Average scientists can't, that's for sure, because they're, obviously identical. And then slowly, over millions of years, we evolved enough chromosomes and finally became a human. Humans have 46. What happens if a human gets extra chromosomes? Anybody know what that's called? Sometimes kids are born with 48 chromosomes. Down's syndrome. Mongoloid. Extra pair of chromosomes. Is it advantageous? No. It's a disadvantage. 46 chromosomes. Now, if we can just get 2 more chromosomes, we should be a tobacco plant. They have 48. They're way ahead of us evolving. And you can see, obviously, tobacco and chimpanzees are twins, identical. Dogs and chickens are also. They both have 78 chromosomes. Now, why would a chicken have more chromosomes than a human? And then, of course, slowly over millions of years, we got enough chromosomes to become a carp. More than twice as complex as humans. A simple carp. And a fern has 480 chromosomes. And some evolutionists will argue, yeah, but the number of genes is different on these things. Okay, but they're missing the entire point. Probably intentionally, they're missing the point. But this textbook, and like most textbooks you have there in front of you, will try to show the kids that DNA similarities proves some kind of relationship. Here's what they've done. You take the chromosome of a human, let's say, and there's only 4 types of base pairs. I think they label them A, D, I used to know the names of them. I'm going blank right now. But they give them a letter. Let's call it A, B, C, D. That's not the right letters, but it's close to that. They will take the sequence. They'll say, look, a human's, the sequence, like the code, is, A, B, C, D, D, A, B, A, C. And they put this long sequence of letters, okay? Then they line up the sequence of letters for a chimpanzee. And they find how many places do they match. Look at that. In the 7th column, they both got an A. Wow. And in the 10th column, they both have a B. Wow, that proves we're related. I don't know how this logic got into there, but that's what they think. So they've compared these long sequence of letters. I guess they have nothing else to do with their grant money. And they compare these long sequence of letters and say, humans and chimpanzees are 98.2% similar. So when they say the DNA is similar, they're saying the sequence of these base pairs matched 98% of the time. Well, Jan, you've taught English for years. I'm sure you could think up all kinds of sentences that are 98% similar. Only a few letters are different. But the sentence means something very different. You only got to change a letter here and there to totally change a word. Nick, trying to learn English, you know how many words there are. There's only one letter different, and it's a totally different word. Very difficult. And Russian probably has the same thing, right? With different letters, different words. Look almost the same. One letter's different, means something totally different. What we ought to go through, somebody maybe could do that, is make a sentence or a paragraph that is 98% similar, but have a totally different meaning. That'd be a neat spoof to do. I'd like to have one to use in my seminar here. Does that prove they're related? Absolutely nothing. This has nothing to do with relationship. The fact that all forms of life, or all these chromosomes, have the same 4 base pairs is like saying, and they'll say, see, that proves evolutionary relationship. I would say, no, wait a minute. You can come to my library, and you'll notice all the books in there, written in English, have only 26 basic letters. Same 26 letters used over and over and over and over again. Aren't they? Does that prove they're related somehow? No. That proves that's the code you write words from. And the code you write chromosomes from is this base pair code, which proves the designer thought, I'm going to make them similar so that the brown cow can eat the green grass and digest it. If each organism had its own separate code, like when I try to see the Russian words or the German or the French or the Italian as I travel around, a lot of, like Chinese, Jan, you over in China, they have a different code. They don't use any of our letters. You not only have to learn the language, you have to learn the letters. That's where it's a little easier to learn French or Spanish. At least they've got the same letters we do in most cases, a few different. Russians, of course, make their R backwards from us, and whatever that means. But the code has some similarities, but it also has some differences between these languages. The code for life is pretty much the same. And some have argued that's evidence of evolution. No, no, no. That's evidence that the designer made it where we can, eat and digest these things. If they all had different codes, it wouldn't work. Eric, if I gave you a Russian newspaper and said, I want you to cut out the letters and reassemble them and make an English sentence, you probably could do that. If I said, I want you to cut out the letters and make a whole book, well, you probably eventually are going to come across some letters that Russians don't have, that you need in English, but they don't have one available. Same thing if you're translating from Russian to English, okay? There may be some letters, I don't know which ones, that they don't exist. Do you have an X in Russian? Do you have an X? Do you have the R facing the right way, or just the backwards R? Just the backwards one, not the regular one. So you'd be hard-pressed then to make a lot of words. How many words have an R that you now cannot make? It would greatly limit your ability to write that book. Certain words you just can't use. There aren't any available. So if there weren't similarities of these base pairs and of the amino acids and in the chromosomes and the DNA structure and in the molecules and in the proteins, we couldn't digest anything else except other humans. That'd be very unhandy after a couple of generations. So they'll say, orangutans are 96% similar. And the textbook shows the kids a graph here and says, see, this tells how many millions of years ago we evolved from a common ancestor. Well, that is just silly, okay? It doesn't prove we evolved from a common ancestor 15 million years ago from a monkey group. It could prove we have a common designer and the same guy wrote these codes. Certain authors, when they write, they'll use certain words over and over again. And sometimes they have certain styles of writing, these different authors do. But judging by that, same DNA code would prove the same engineer wrote the codes, not evolution. So why the textbooks always teach the kids this is evidence for evolution is beyond my comprehension. Either they're not capable of thinking, maybe this proves a common designer, or they're running from that designer, like Romans chapter 1 tells us. They do not want to retain God in their knowledge. And so they only see it one way. All right, we're talking about thinking critically.